Hey everybody. Hey, have you ever tried to paint over your stained woodwork and then later it chips or peels? Well, today I'm going to show you how to paint over your woodwork so that it adheres well and looks good for a long time. So let's get started. So the first thing I do is I'm going to put some tape down between the trim and the carpet to keep me from getting paint on the carpet. So what I do is I use the wider tape and I just kind of force it underneath, and I'll take my spatula and just kind of make sure it's under there good. That way when I paint, I'm not going to get anything on the carpet. So I'll continue this all the way down and we'll pick back up. So the next step may be the most important step. So what I've done here is I've gotten a little bit of grease cutting dish soap on here, and I'm going to clean the wood really good. I want to make sure there's no oils, no dirt, no dust. I'm going to do this all along here, scrub it good, and then I'll follow it up with just a damp rag with just water on it to make sure there's no soap residue on there. So that our paint will adhere well. So I'll get this done and we'll pick back up. Alright, we've got it all cleaned up and I'm ready to rough the surface up a little bit. Now I'll say this, if you need a new caulk bead along here, you may have to do that. This caulk bead looks good. I don't have to mess with it. Or if you've got gaps and you just need to touch up certain places, or if you've got dings or nail holes, you'll want to fill those first so that it looks nice and smooth when you're all done. But this looks good. So I'm going to leave it like it is, and I'll show you how I paint it. But our next step is going to be to use a little Scotch-Brite to just rough the surface. You do not have to sand down the woodwork. You're just going to rough the surface a little bit, because what we're going to do is we're going to use bonded primer so that the paint will adhere to the primer and you won't have any chipping or peeling in the future. So I'm just going to go along here. You don't have to get crazy. And I'm just going to rough the surface just a little bit. Like this. You can see it's kind of dulling the surface a little bit. Then when I'm done, I'm going to go over it again with my damp rag, not the one with soap, but just a damp rag, and just kind of wipe off any of the dust that might be on there before we paint. So I'll get busy with this, and we'll get on to the next step. I'll show you another little trick. If you're going to paint the whole room, or if you've got the wall color paint here, you could run your tape all along the edge here on the wall, and then if you take the wall paint and you just paint a little bead along here and let it dry, then when you go to paint the trim, you've got sealed down here so you can't get on the carpet, and you've got it sealed here so that it won't get underneath the tape. See, this is a textured wall, so if I paint along here without sealing it first, some of that paint will be likely to get up underneath there, and when I peel the tape off along the wall, I put it on there too good, didn't I? Then there may be a little bit of the trim paint on the wall. So just a trick, if you've got the wall color, you could do that if you want. I prefer to just paint along and feather it so I can see what it looks like right as I'm painting. Okay, we're ready to get started painting. Now obviously I'm going to put the bonded primer on first. So I'm going to get my primer here and I'm going to get started. Now it does not have to go on thick. It can be a little bit opaque. I'm just going to get it on there. A nice thin coat on so that my top coat color will adhere well. And here's a little trick that I do, is just to make sure I don't get paint on the wall. I use my spatula here and I just kind of run along like that. And I might have to touch it up a little bit. And we're off. I always keep a rag handy in case I get some on the wall. You don't have to be a professional painter. It doesn't have to look perfect. Your top coat's a little more important. And we're going to get this trim going. Show you what it looks like when I get done. Well, I finished the primer coat and the bonded primer's on. You'll notice it's a little opaque in places, and that's okay. Primer's going to be that way. It'll smooth out on the top coat. So the can says I gotta wait for 2 hours at least before I can put a top coat on. So we're going to do that. And we'll put the top coat on and see how it looks. Okay, it's been more than 2 hours and we're ready to get started on the top coat. One thing I did want to mention is this wood is pine, so it's very smooth. If you have oak or a more open grain wood for your trim, you are going to need more coats of the primer base to fill in the open grains, so that when you do paint the top coat, or coats, if you need more than one coat, it's going to smooth out and look better. Alright, let's get started. Another thing I wanted to mention is the better brush you have and the better paint you buy, the smoother it's going to go on and the nicer it's going to look. Okay, so we're going to get started here. Yeah, that's a nice color. Always smooth strokes. Once you kind of get out of the corner there, you can do longer, smoother strokes, and it's going to come out very nicely. Again, I'll use my sheet here, go along the top. And we got a good start. So I'll get busy on this and we'll take a look at it when we're finished. So here we are. We've got the top coat on and it's looking pretty good. No doubt I'll have a few spots I'll need to touch up, but I need to wait for it to dry completely to do that so that it doesn't smear. Now just a note, I use acrylic latex water soluble paint, and so I use a more expensive brand because I want it to come out nice and it goes on smoother. Looks better when you're finished. So we don't want to remove the tape either, until which time it's all nice and dry. And finally, the finished product. It looks so much cleaner, nicer. So if you liked my video, don't forget to hit like and share.